David Gopen here. Back to Unreal City. Let's take a look at those few lines. Here are those lines that begin this new stanza graph. Unreal City, a quote from Baudelaire. Under the brown fog of a winter dawn, a crowd flowed up along over London Bridge. So many I had not thought death had undone so many. Sighs, short and infrequent, were exhaled. Now, when I was reading this poem as a much younger person and did not have much of a grasp of it, this was a passage that really bothered me. I wasn't sure why the city was unreal. I mentioned last hour that, well, if you're not safe enough to deliver a horoscope, what a bad situation. But if you're a city where people are depending on people doing tarot card readings, that is unreal in its way too. And do we have a unit that is Madame Sosostris? Yes. Do we have bookends for her? Well, the bookends are that the verse form changes to get to her, and then the verse form changes in leaving her. So the silences on either edge of that stanza graph are a kind of bookend. Unreal City, under the brown fog of a winter dawn. A crowd flowed over London Bridge. So many, I had not thought death had undone so many. Now, I had said a moment before this in the poem, I see crowds of people walking around in a ring, that I sensed that was the beginning of reaching out to Dante because of the rings of the circles of hell. And by golly, I think that's right, because what have we got here? I had not thought death had undone so many is a direct quote from Dante's Inferno. And from a different part of Dante's Inferno is another direct quote, sighs short and infrequent were exhaled. Now, if you know that those are quotes and from different places, so they're fragmented, with a heap of broken images, these fragments, which you're trying to put together. Sighs short and infrequent were exhaled. If you put it back into the Inferno, well, that would make sense. Everybody there is in hell, and they're sighing a lot, and the sighs are short and infrequent because they've been there a long time and they're not wailing continually. We're exhaled. And this is what Virgil is showing Dante exists in hell. So the unreal city, with two quotes from Dante's Inferno, becomes a picture of hell. Now, a crowd flowed over London Bridge. So many. I had not thought death had undone so many. I had the good luck to bump into an image, I'll be right back, that has stayed with me. Because, let me get rid of text so you can see this better. Because back in 1966, when I was an undergraduate student for a year at the University of Reading in England, I did a lot of buying in secondhand bookstores because I was buying books for 7 cents and 10 cents and 14 cents. I was buying first editions of really interesting 19th century poets for 7 and 14 cents a piece. I wound up buying 500 books, only 4 of which cost over $1. Now, one of them was this. It's a book of photos. It's very strangely shaped. It's very heavy. And it is in very fragile shape now because the binding is certain. Pages have gotten old and the Victorians didn't print things well. This is from 1896, and it's a bunch of photos of major places in London. And I open it up, and what do I find is about like the second page, but a crowd flowing over London Bridge. So many, I had not thought death had undone so many. This, folks, is what rush hour looked like at 9 o'clock in the morning on a business day in London. This is what Eliot encountered when he was going to work, although in the teens, he might have some automobiles there and not just horses and carriages. They'd be mixed in together. Look at the way humanity is scrunched together. It's a kind of vision of hell, is it not? Crowd flowed over London Bridge, and Eliot experienced this every day walking to work because of the tube stops that he took to get to where he was going. I had not thought death had undone so many. So the unreal city is swarming with people and with a sense of the grotesqueness of death. Sighs, short and infrequent, were exhaled. The whole population sounds in trouble. And each man fixed his eyes before his feet, flowed up the hill and down King William Street. It's nice how that line flows up the hill and then down King William Street. Wait a minute, what just happened? Something's happening. To where St. Mary Woolnoth kept the hours with a dead sound on the final stroke of 9. As rhyme started to creep back in, let's look at, see, there's a rhyme scheme. City, dawn, they don't rhyme, but hold on to them. Many, nothing rhymes so far. Many, so many and so many end consecutive lines. This is called rhyme riche, R-I-C-H-E. It's too rich as a rhyme. It doesn't work well as rhyme, but it does work as an old rhetorical figure of speech, even if it's just these two, called epistrophe. That's E-P-I-S-T-R-O-P-H-E. Epistrophe is the ending of a number of units of discourse in a row with the same thing. 2 is a small number. But because it's poetry, you can really feel the end. A crowd flowed over London Bridge, so many, I had not thought death had undone so many. Exhaled doesn't rhyme with anything. Neither does feet. And then street. So feet, street rhyme. So many echo. And ours and mine don't. Now, mine repeats the MN of many. So it's like rhyme trying to scratch its way back in, but doesn't really succeed in doing so. Think of this as any crowd flowing over London Bridge, but if you know that Eliot did this himself every day, think of it as a 9 o'clock rush hour. Each man fixed his eyes before his feet. People didn't look at each other or converse with each other in transportation then. What have we got today? You go into any major airport and go into a waiting area. You see 250 people sitting there. No 2 people are talking to each other. Everybody's buried in their cell phone, their laptop, or they're asleep. So we're back to this. Flowed up the hill and down King William Street, which he did on his commute. So this was all just personal. He's allowing it to spill out to where St. Mary Woolnoth, that's a church, kept the hours. Every hour it bonged its bell with a dead sound on the final stroke of 9. Now, Eliot tells us in his note that this is a phenomenon he had often noted. So he's actually allowing us to know this is a detail from his workday life. And why should we be interested in it? Why should we find that of significance? Well, final stroke of 9. I guess he's maybe going to be a couple of minutes late. If it's already chiming 9, he's not quite at work yet. But final stroke of 9. It was only the last one that had a dead sound. Put the words together, folks. Dead. 9. Final. Who do you know who was famous? Who died in the 9th hour? Let's go to St. Matthew's, to Matthew's Gospel. And in the 9th hour, Jesus spoke up and said, Eli, Eli, O God, my God, why hast thou abandoned me? And then a bit later, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. And he dies. Does this come into this line? Now, please understand, I'm not saying that's the answer to the mystery that this line sets out there to see if we literary sleuths can figure it all out and have it make sense. Not at all. I'm saying that if you've got the Gospel of Matthew and the death of Jesus in mind, then the 9 and the dead and the final stroke, I've got to reverberate that word again, and keep you with a sense of being connected to something bigger than yourself and something well more than some commute to work at one point, at a moment in one's life in London. This is trying to spread out to be everywhere. And he's taken us via Dante into hell to be everywhere. And then we get something really strange. There I saw one I knew and stopped him, crying, Stetson, you who were with me in the ships at my lee, that corpse you planted last year in your garden, has it begun to sprout? Will it bloom this year? Or has the sudden frost disturbed its bed? Oh, keep the dog far hence that's friend to men, or with his nails he'll dig it up again. You, hypocrite lecteur, mon semblable, mon frère. And the first movement of this poem is over. Let's talk some about that. Stetson. So many people have worried. Who's Stetson? Is he Marie's guy? It doesn't matter who Stetson is. Stetson is a name that represents a man, and the man could be any man. At all times? No. This is just somebody noticed on the commute to work. Really? You who are with the ships with me at my lee. My lee is a battle in the First Punic War between ancient Rome and Carthage. And Rome beat up Carthage and Hannibal so badly in that battle that Hannibal and Carthage never stood a chance again, and they eventually became completely subdued. Now, who's this guy talking to Stetson? You who were with me in the ships? What ships? Ships, not on a boat somewhere, cruising down some river to take a look at the lovely sight. Ships, a navy. Sounds like it's referring to World War I, which is just over. He sees an old Navy buddy. But what war was that? The First Punic War, 2,000 years earlier. One war is every war. All wars are the same war. Just like all the men in this poem are one man and all the women, one woman. All wars are one war, and they're all disastrous and destructive, horrifying and horrible. You who with the ships in my lee. Now, to make that point even more, if you're American and of a given age, perhaps, I don't know, over your 30s, you might remember that one of the worst events in the Vietnam War was a massacre, an American troop massacre of a small village called not My Lee, but Me Lai, M-Y-L-A-E. Wait a minute. This says M-Y-L-A-E, spelled the same way. I think it's spelled the same way. Maybe my memory's fooling me. Miley, me and I. All wars are the same war. But then he asked Stetson some strange questions. That corpse you planted last year in your garden, has it begun to sprout? Will it bloom this year? What are you talking about? Do people bury corpses in their back gardens? Do they want the corpse to sprout? And if it sprouts, what does it sprout? New people? Well, we go right back into Eliot's connection to mythology. There are many different creation stories across the world and all the mythologies of all the different peoples. I have a glossy coffee table kind of book somewhere in my collection on creation myths of the world. And it's fascinating to compare them one to another. There is a strain of creation myth that gets repeated in a number of different civilizations, where in order to get the spring to return and give us the beginnings of procreation, of food, and the summer bring it to richness, and the fall bring it to harvest, and then make your way through the death of winter until the spring starts it over again. What would happen if the spring didn't come? That would be a real fear for people who had no real knowledge of the world, because it was a long time before we understood these things. What would they want to do? Well, if they believed in gods, more often gods than a god, single god, gods, they would want to pray to the gods of vegetation, to the gods of renewal, to the gods of growth, to the gods of the earth and food. They would want to make those gods feel good about our attention to them so that they would visit us again with spring. And one of the ways a number of different mythologies thought up to do this was to make a sacrifice. Now, some places they sacrificed human beings. Other places, more humane, would bury a god. They do an image of the god, and they would either bury it in the earth, or they would send it out on a boat with a leak in the boat so it would sink, or they would send it out in a boat having set fire to the image before they pushed the boat away from the shore. So there was this sacrificial ritual of undoing, giving death to the god that would then, through resurrection, give us spring again. And Eliot was very interested in these myths, and you can find them in Fraser's Golden Bough, which Eliot was so interested in. And here it gets transformed and transmutated into a strange conversation on London Bridge. That's that corpse you buried in your garden, in hopes of bringing the spring back, that corpse. Has it begun to sprout? Do you see signs of spring? April is the cruelest month. Will it bloom this year? God, every year you worry about it. Will it bloom this year? If it does, we get spring, we can survive. Or has the sudden frost disturbed its bed? A sudden frost after flowers or even plants have started to bloom can often every year kill things. I always have flowers that come up and then the ice comes and I lose some of them. Or has the sudden frost disturbed its bed? Oh, keep the dog far hence, that's friend to men. Oh, with his nails, he'll dig it up again. Stetson, you better keep that dog of yours out of the garden, because he can tell something's buried there and he'll dig it up. And if he does, then your whole ritual is undone. And the dog may be a man's best friend, but he's not going to be much of a friend if he digs up your sacrificial burial. Dog here is capitalized. Why? This is not just a dog, this is dog. Is there anything in it that dog spelled backwards is God? Never can tell. Maybe this is a typo the editor should have caught. And we have another quote from John Webster, a contemporary of Shakespeare's. And his quote is, "Keep the wolf far hence, that's foe to men. Oh, with his nails, he'll dig it up again." And then we get you. This is still quoted, so it's still the person on the bridge who sees Stetson. You. This person turns to us and starts speaking French. Hypocrite lecteur. Hypocritical reader. Why am I a hypocrite? I'm the reader. Why am I a hypocrite? Is it because I think I'm so much above everybody and everything that's happening in anything that I read, that this doesn't have anything to do with me? I wouldn't do those kinds of things or fear those kinds of fears. Or hypocrite lecteur. Now, he warms it up a bit or waters it down, depending which direction you like to go. Mon semblable. That's kinder. You who are just like me. The word semblance in English. Mon semblable. You who are like me. And then gets warmer still. Mon frère, my brother. So we go all the way from the hypocrite to we're all the same to we're related. Who wrote these words? Can you guess? And where did they appear? They're written by, you guessed, Baudelaire. Unreal City, Baudelaire. Hypocrite lecteur, mon semblable, mon frère, Baudelaire. Baudelairean bookends. For the last stanza graph, it embraces this strange trip over a bridge in London now and for thousands of years as a result of war and an attempt to start over again after the death of winter. April can be the cruelest of months because if you believe that the gods have to bless you for spring to come, you got to be at your highest level of anxiety, full of memory, full of desire, as you wonder, will it bloom again this year? And we end this movement by being called out by a symbolist poet in a symbolist kind of way, with these fragments interact with each other in ways that straight narrative never did. And we become accused of being a hypocritical reader. Someone who is like the person who is accusing us and then embraced as my brother, hypocrite lecteur, mon semblable, mon frère. We're going to move on to the second movement. I call them movements because Eliot was so into Beethoven's string quartets. And he wrote this in 5 movements, and all 4 of his 4 quartets at the end of his poetical life each had 5 movements, and his favorite string quartet of Beethoven's was Opus 132, which had 5 movements. But it's also true that Shakespeare's plays have been edited by most editors into 5 acts, so the 5 works there also. And of course, Shakespeare wrote an iambic pentameter. So 5 is a number having to do with the architecture and the structure and the procedure of great art. Next time, we move on to the second movement. Look forward to seeing you then. Bye now.